Not long before 9:30 on the night of Tuesday the 13th of December 2016, 3 female students were on the way out for a Christmas meal when they found 25-year-old Hayley Wall. She was on the streets, bleeding and disorientated. Initially, she told the students that she'd just fallen over, but then she later told the students that she'd been hit by a partner. She also told the 3 girls that earlier that night she'd been in the pub with a partner and he tried to sexually touch her in front of everyone, and she'd pushed him away. She added that before she left the home, he'd thrown a TV at her. When the paramedics arrived on scene, she told them the same thing. Hayley was then rushed to hospital. Not long after, the police arrived at the couple's house. They found evidence of a disturbance, including a damaged door, bloodstains and a broken television. Her partner was in bed asleep. He had minor wounds, some stabs on his back and a deep one on his hand. 10 days later, on the 23rd of December, Hayley Wall died in hospital. As a result of the attack, she'd had bleeding on the brain. Hi guys, I'm Harley, this is All I'm Saying. Here we tell true stories, mostly crime stories, but I do try and do the strange and fiction every now and again. There is a disclaimer before we start. This is a true crime. It involves real people, and then real people have real families. So I do want you to comment, and I do want you to share, but as you do so, please be sensitive about what you say. Hayley Wall hadn't had an easy life. Her dad was in prison, and her mum were an alcoholic. And as a result of all that, when she was 6 years old, she ended up in care. The story unfortunately follows the seemingly typical path from that point on. Hayley spent time going from foster home to foster home, and after spending time in all these different foster homes, at the age of 16, she finally ran away. It weren't an awful lot later that she turned to alcohol and drugs. She was addicted, and the circle continues. But in 2015, Hayley's mum died, and she decided she was going to break the cycle. She decided she was going to turn her life around. So at the age of 24, Hayley Wall moved to Bournemouth. She'd moved to live with her uncle. She was 24, he was 57. She had a good chance to get away from everybody, get away from everything, start a new, clean life. So let's fast forward 1 year to the 13th of December 2016. Hayley and her uncle Christopher had been drinking in Hadrian's. It's some sort of bar, or it was some sort of bar or restaurant or bistro cafe. Either which way, it's now closed or it's been rebranded, but Adrian's is no longer a thing on that road. While they're in there, Christopher tried to sexually touch Hayley, but she kind of went, no, everyone's watching, get off me, and pushed him away. As a result of Hayley rejecting his advances, in Christopher's words, he was really riled up. Not long after, Hayley and Christopher went for a cigarette, and when they came back, the friends noticed that there was a bit of an atmosphere between them. The witness said not long after that, Chris left the pub, and Hayley, with a tear in her eye, turned to a friend and said, "Why does he keep doing this to me?" A lodger who lives with Christopher and Hayley recalls them returning home just before 8 p.m. He also said there was an atmosphere between them, but then they went upstairs. He heard screaming and shouting, and he could hear Hayley crying, as if she were in pain. He could also hear her say no, no, over and over again. But them cries and screams were only one-sided. At no point did he hear Christopher sound like he was in pain or crying or anything like that. But Christopher definitely was shouting. He was shouting things like, "Is this the way you want to be treated? Is this the way you want to be fucking treated, is it?" Eventually, Hayley appeared in the lodger's room. She was covered in blood, and he apparently said to her, "Look, don't go anywhere, let's phone an ambulance, let's get you seen to." But Hayley didn't listen, and she left the house, still covered in blood. When Hayley left the house on Shelbourne Road, she went to Chelminster Road, and that's about half a mile away. And on her way as she was walking down Shelbourne Road, she saw a guy. This guy later described her as distraught, and she asked to use his phone, but he refused. And I mean, that sounds really awful, but I suppose it's dark out, and someone that's covered in blood and a bit distraught wants to use your phone. If she's not asking for an ambulance, then you're going to be a bit wary. Hindsight's an amazing thing. I personally would have let him use my phone, to be fair, but I'm not judging him for that. I did also read and see appeals from the police. They issued CCTV of a man with a crutch, and they were asking him to come forward because he might have seen something as he were walking down Shelbourne Road that night. So I'm not quite sure if it is that guy that's come forward. He did come forward, so I assume it is him, but I can't confirm that. It was when Hayley got to Chelminster Road that the 3 students found her. As I said, they were out for a meal and they'd seen Hayley. She was covered in blood, she was disorientated, and that was to an extent that she couldn't even walk straight. Also, the place where the ambulance finally arrived, where Hayley was only like a few hundred yards down the road from where Hadrian's was. And as I said, Hayley told these students, look, I've fallen over, but then she later said, no, my partner's hit me. And she told them the story that she'd been in the pub and he tried to sexually touch her in front of everyone and she pushed him away. And then she said they went back home and before they left, he'd thrown a TV at her. She'd fell down as a result. It was just before 9:20 at night, 20 minutes past 9 p.m, when the students phoned for an ambulance. Shamefully, it took 1 hour and 10 minutes for the ambulance to arrive. And the students stayed with her the entire time. Not only did they stay with her, during the time they were waiting, they made 2 additional calls to the ambulance service, reporting that Hayley's condition was quickly deteriorating and they needed help ASAP. So the ambulance finally arrived at 28 minutes past 10. And that was just in time for Holly to tell them what she told the students, that she'd been attacked by a partner and that they'd been out that night and tried to sexually touch her. She also managed to confirm that she was Hayley Wall of Shelbourne Road. Obviously, the ambulance attendees then phoned Dorset Police, and at around 11:40 p.m, the police arrived at Christopher's house. He was asleep in bed. The attending police saw signs of a disturbance. These signs included a door. It was on the landing and it had been knocked off the frame. It also had 2 long hairs embedded into a crack that were halfway up the door, accompanied by blood splats. Further along the landing was a flat screen TV that did appear to be damaged. In the bedroom, officers found blood-stained clothes, blood smears and blood staining. Further blood was found in the ensuite bathroom. Christopher Wall was then arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm. Before being taken to the police station, he was taken to a hospital to seek treatment for some stab wounds on his back and one across his hand. The deepest one were on his hand, and they were all minor wounds, nothing too serious. In the further police investigation, they found that Christopher had created 6 media files and then deleted them. They did manage to restore these files, and here's what they were. There was recordings of himself that he'd made. One said, "I'm not sure what happened. She's really fucking riled me up tonight." In the recording, he said he's been stabbed and he was having trouble breathing. Then he added, "I'm special. Also fucking special." A later clip recorded by Christopher Wall says, "That little," censored word, "stabbed me in the back for no reason at all. I know I've been leaking blood everywhere. When I say that little," censored word, I mean here. Now, you know I usually share the censored words with you. I have no idea what the censored words were. 4 letters long, so maybe the F word, maybe the C word. I don't know, it's 4 letters long. Either which way, he's obviously not being very nice about it, is he? When he was interviewed by the police, he provided a prepared statement. In this statement, he basically said that Hayley had tried to attack him with a pair of scissors and he used reasonable force to protect himself. He made no comments in the following 2 interviews, and he also made no comment at any point and refused to answer questions about his potentially incestuous relationship with his niece. Now, before we move on, I just want to read a bit of a short BBC article. It was more of an update article, but it claimed a 44-year-old man had been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and a 58-year-old man had been held on suspicion of wounding with intent. Now, obviously, the 58-year-old is Christopher. The 44-year-old, I'm not sure. Maybe it was the person that was living with them, the lodger. But to me, it seems very strange that the 44-year-old was arrested on suspicion of murder and the 58-year-old Chris was on suspicion of wounding. I don't understand why it was done like that. Either which way, I did look it up a bit more, and the person that was arrested, the 44-year-old man, he was later released without further investigation, further action. Hayley was taken straight to Poole Hospital, but her condition further deteriorated. She was then transferred to Southampton Hospital with a serious brain injury. 10 days after Hayley had been attacked by her uncle/partner, on the 23rd of December 2016, she died in hospital. She'd suffered bleeding on the brain as a result of the attack. Hayley Wall's half-sister said, "Hayley was a troubled person who had a very difficult life, but despite that, she was still lovely. She had a heart of gold, but she just hadn't had the chance to put it to good use. She was a lovely person inside and out, and she was a joy. From what I can see, this half-sister initially completely rejected allegations of the incestuous relationship. She later added that if it were happening, the rest of the family knew absolutely nothing about it. She finally drew to the conclusion that maybe it were going on, but it weren't as it seemed. She believes that Christopher were abusing her. He'd taken advantage of her trust. He'd essentially groomed her. None of that were a quote. I was just paraphrasing. His trial at Winchester Crown Court was in August 2017, and it lasted for 12 days. Despite his not guilty plea, Christopher Wall was sentenced to the murder of his partner/niece. He was given a life sentence with a minimum of 14 years. In a statement, Hayley's family said,
Hayley had a bad start in life and things were only just beginning to go her way when she was taken from us. As a family, we were unaware of Hayley's relationship with Chris and would have done all we could to get her away from him had we known. We will always wonder if there was something we could have done to prevent this, and we will always carry that guilt. As a family, we will be forever grateful to the 3 students who cared for Hayley outside of the supermarket. To know they were there gives us great comfort. We feel today justice has been served, but it will never bring back Hayley. She will always be in our hearts.
What an absolutely awful story. That is all I've got for you. It's quite a strange one, you know. We can't deny that there was some sort of incestuous relationship going on. That's a fact. Hayley were calling her partner, they shared the same bedroom. But I don't think he were her partner. Or at least not in the proper sense. I think he was abusive. And I think he did abuse her. When that started is unclear. But I completely reject the term partner. Abuser would be much more of a good term. Even if she thought she was in a proper relationship. That is what grooming is. She was vulnerable, he knew it, and he took advantage of it. And I think after not having a solid foundation since she was 6 years old, she's now got an uncle that's giving her love, is giving her attention, is making her feel special. And this might sound quite cold and uneducated, but I can't imagine that would have been very hard to do. She'd come from a very dark place. She's had a really tough life. So he's found it quite easy to make her feel comfortable, make her feel warm, make her feel welcome. But to him, he didn't really love her, he didn't really care about her. She was just a thing for his enjoyment. And I'm not sure if he'd been abusive in the past or how he'd been abusive to her. But in my eyes, there's certainly a good possibility. I think he were. Like I said, if he's groomed her, if he's been coercively controlling, she wouldn't have necessarily recognised that, and nobody else would have, because she'd have just looked besotted with him. And then one day he wanted to do something that she didn't want to do, and it all became clear. She were being controlled, and he didn't like it. I haven't written down any advice to give, because again, it's domestic abuse, incestuous, grooming domestic abuse. So if you do want that advice, look up the Holly Carell video. It's at the end of that video. I am going to put domestic abuse links in the description if you need help. I am also going to put information about grooming down below, links. So if you think somebody's been groomed, I'm sure the links will be able to help you identify whether that's true and what you can do about it. I'll drop the links for the UK and then the other top 2 countries with my subscribers in it. Sorry, I can't do every country, it's not possible. I am very grateful and very appreciative of you all from everywhere. Thank you all for your support, it means the world to me. Don't forget to like it, don't forget to share it, don't forget to subscribe, please. Thank you, and I shall see you all next week. Stay safe out there.